Welcome everybody and please be seated. It's great to see such a full house. Can you push it in a bit more? Thank you. Okay, thank you everybody. So first of all, welcome and some safety information. Welcome to today's full council meeting. As many of you will know, the current Lord Mayor, Councillor Paul Goggin, has been very unwell for the past 2 months. I'm pleased to report that his health is improving, and I'm sure the Chamber will all join me in sending the Lord Mayor our very best wishes and hopes for a full and speedy recovery. Thank you. Welcome to members of the public who are attending here in the public gallery and to those in the conference hall who are and also those who are watching via our YouTube channel. For those in the building, I'd like to draw your attention to the emergency evacuation procedure. Please leave the chamber by the nearest exit and congregate by the cathedral. As with any council meeting, please treat each other with due courtesy, tolerance and respect. Thank you. Okay, so straight on to agenda item 2, which is apologies for absence. I have received apologies from the Lord Mayor, along with Councillors Bradshaw, Cole, Crawford, Davies. How long will we let them do it? Thank you. Can I just make a plea at this point? Thank you for attending today. Thank you for bringing your banner. Thank you for making your point. In this democratic process, what we do is we have a system whereby people put in statements and put in questions and the Mayor answers them. We do have those questions today and you have that opportunity to do so again. I'm very pleased that you're here today, but I will ask you not to continue disrupting our meeting because... Well, I've just asked you quite nicely not to keep interrupting our meeting. I will do. I'll give him a chance. Okay, and I will reiterate my point, which is that we have the questions procedure, which is through the system that everybody else has adhered to and put their questions in. You know, you can continue to disrupt the meeting all the way through, and if you do that, then you're going to force me and give me no choice but to adjourn the meeting and go away and wait and come back again. But I do plead with you not to do that. I respect your right to come here, you're publicising the need for the consultation, you're making your views clear, and I applaud you. You've done that now. So if you could please be seated and then at least allow the people who have gone through the democratic process and who have put their questions in, who have done it in a time and have come here today to speak, you're stopping them from speaking. So that is my plea. Please allow it to continue. Okay. You know, if you... I'm... Okay, I'm going to... Okay, you've stood up, you've waved your flag, you've made your point. Can you sit down now, please? If you're going to sit down and let me continue the meeting, I will do that. Otherwise, I'm going to have to clear the chamber. Why has it already been budgeted for? Okay. I'm going to clear it. I'm going to clear it now. Okay, you've spoken before. I am being... Okay, I'm going to bang my gavel. I have been quite just in allowing people to speak. That woman there, you've spoken and I let you speak for about 1 minute. I'm letting you hold your banner. I'm letting you interrupt the meeting. I'm not going to let you do that for much longer, okay? I will tolerate so much and I will tolerate no more. If you make me put me in a position where I have to empty this chamber and waste everybody's time and waste the time of the other citizens who have come here today and who have adhered to the process that we offer, where you put your statements in and you come and you get your questions and you ask the mayor questions and you get an answer. You've had your time. Make your choice now. Either sit down or leave and I will continue with my meeting, or the third option is you do neither of those and I clear the chamber. Which is it to be? Okay. 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 Look, I'm a school teacher. I'm used to this. Is this what I'm going to have to do? Am I going to have to go, you're not wasting my time, you're wasting your time, you're wasting citizens' time? Okay. I'm, with the support of the chamber, I'm going to sit here for 2 minutes. Can you put the clocks on, please? 3 minutes. Can you put the timers on? I'm going to sit here in silence for 3 minutes. If you want to shout at each other, continue to do that. At the end of the 3 minutes, I will empty the chamber. Give him 3 minutes.
My Lord Mayor, would it help if we left? Because I'm not sure much is being conducted right now.
I'd like to be able to continue the meeting in 3 minutes, okay? Okay. Looks like we're clearing the chamber.
I think you have the authority, so
Yeah.
we'll stay until you call.
Yeah. Okay. The chamber is clearing. We might as well all clear the chamber. Right. So, where were we? Yeah. Ironically, we got to the bit where it's about apologies. So, but it's apologies from councillors. So I was halfway through saying that we have received apologies from the Lord Mayor, Councillors Bradshaw, Cole, Crawford, Davies, English, Francis, Hants and Hornchin and Pearce. Are there any other apologies?
Councillor Gita, please.
Councillor Gita, thank you. And Councillor Cheney? And also we have apologies from Councillor Cheney. So, now we're on to declarations of interest. Please, can I ask whether any councillors have any interests to declare regarding the items on today's agenda? Nothing? Thank you. Okay. So, agenda item 4, which is the minutes from the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the previous meeting of full council, which was held on the 11th of July 2023, be agreed as a correct record. Do I have a seconder?
I second that, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Can I take it that the minutes are agreed then? Thank you. Okay, agenda item 5, which is the Lord Mayor's business, and there is none. So we are now on to public forum, and you're very, very welcome, and it's lovely to see you here, and it's really important that you get your time. So we have a half an hour for this this section of the meeting, so it's 6:20 now, but we will still allow half an hour for the official public forum. Details of the petition statements and questions received have been published on our website. And what I will do is I will go through the list, calling on those who have indicated that they planned to attend the meeting. Speakers are asked to pay attention to the traffic lights on the dais and to start to wrap up when the lights turn amber. There were no public forum petitions received for this meeting. There were a total of 14 public statements received, and a list of these will be displayed on the screen. 8 members of the public indicated that they planned to attend and speak to their statements. They are displayed on the screen, and we will run through those statements in order. So, I invite each person to speak for 1 minute. Please summarise your statement and bear in mind that members have already read the statement, so speak to it rather than read it if you're able. First of all, do we have Suzanne Audrey here? Suzanne, a microphone will be brought to you. I don't see anybody rushing with the microphone to you, but do we have a microphone for Suzanne Audrey, please? Do we have a member of... Somebody from Democratic Services needs to get some microphones into the public gallery, please. Okay, we're there. So, if you could read your question and then you have one supplementary... Sorry, I'm getting confused. Statements.
It's a statement, yes. So I hope to present a petition about loss of confidence in Bristol's planning system to full council in November. But in the meantime, I'd like to highlight the issue. Our concern is that the council is currently failing to deliver an effective, impartial service, lacks consistency in the application of material planning considerations and policies, and is being unduly influenced to get stuff done by the Mayor's office. We urge the Mayor, Cabinet members and councillors of all parties to consider the harm done when residents no longer have confidence in the impartiality of officers and members of planning committees, and when decisions are made that will cause long-term, if not irreparable harm to Bristol's neighbourhoods and city centre. Thank you.
Thank you for your brevity, Suzanne. And we are straight on to Michaela Andrews, who has a statement about the climate emergency and food systems. Michaela?
I asked a question about food and climate at council a year ago. After that, motions on plant-based solutions were tabled by 3 political groups but still haven't been heard. Since these motions have been waiting for this council's attention, we've seen devastating wildfires, extreme heat, and mass migrations across the world driven by global heating. We know that meat and dairy produce many times more greenhouse gas emissions than plant foods, but we currently eat twice the global average of meat. Public organisations must step up and show leadership to change this. This council has declared a climate emergency and should be leading the way on this. Many other councils have already voted for plant-based motions, so I would like to know when council will finally give this issue the attention it urgently deserves and debate the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. Thank you. So now we're going to move on to Doris Smith, who is speaking about LTNs. Doris, are you here? At the back, thank you.
Hi, I submitted several lines to my statement, which I don't have with me. But to summarise, I would just like the council to consider the public opinion of the LTN for East Bristol livable neighbourhood, and to look at what traffic confusion that it will give, and I just wonder how this is going to help congestion when everybody's using the same roads.
Thank you, Doris. Thank you. And now we're on to David Huerret, who has a statement about the tennis courts at Redcutch Park. David?
Hello. My concerns about the Redcutch Park tennis courts is that the council has decided, through advice from the council officers and with support from the mayor, to suddenly make these last 3 courts of Bristol pay to play for everybody. In my opinion, this is against the council officers have actually misled the public. They've misled just about everybody. They've ignored the councillors for the ward, and basically what they've done is they are advising people and introducing pay-per-play, which appears to be against the law for equalities and against Bristol City Council's own policies on inclusion, well-being, equalities and bringing communities together. Because this particular action has meant the community has divided like no other time before. So my concerns are that unless this action is stopped, then people from lower class backgrounds, elderly people, children will not be able to use the tennis courts. So I say, can you repeal this, please? Can you reconsider? The councillors have asked
Well
for
said.
it.
Thank you. We now have a statement from Megan Smith about the East Bristol Livable Neighbourhood Scheme. Megan?
Thank you. The East Bristol Livable Neighbourhood Scheme is not a grassroots scheme. It is a global scheme that has been going since 2004 under the C40 Cities International organisation run by Boris Johnson, Michael Bloomberg and Carlos Moreno. It leads to net zero emissions, which means no emissions, no movement of people, and it will be finalised in 2030. This means we will have no cars going through our neighbourhood, and people will be stuck in their local areas. There will be no leaving the country from aeroplanes or shipping out. It's a global agenda, and it's very easy to find this information from the World Economic Forum Agenda 2030.
Thank you. Thank you. So we now move on to Stephanie Richmond. Again, the East Bristol Livable Neighbourhood. Stephanie?
Hi. Excuse me. I work for Rank Engineering, and as shareholders of Barton Hill Estate Management Limited, we think it's categorically unacceptable to implement this scheme, whereby traffic is diverted through the Barton Hill Trading Estate as a cut-through, resulting in severe detrimental health and safety ramifications for Barton Hill Trading Estate employees and customers. Furthermore, the proposals will cause even more queuing outside Briarwood Special School and Summerhill Academy, not exclusively, which have already been recently negatively affected by the recent clean air zone displacement. Bristol's inner city streets have been designed to cope with heavy traffic, not the outer city streets. The infrastructure is not there. Thus, this could lead to an increase in toxic air.
Thank you. Can I ask you to wind up your statement now, please?
Yep, which has been proven to increase child mortality and decrease the life expectancy of children.
Thank you for your statement.
Thank you.
We also have Chris Johnson on the same topic. Do we have Chris Johnson?
I'll be brief because of the time constraints and the statement.
Thank you.
Says it all. Just referring to the consultation process for the East Bristol livable neighbourhood, I and many others consider the consultation was not fit for purpose. Obviously, there was a backlash from the public when they realised what the scheme would look like. Councillor Don Alexander said that there would be a full consultation in the August, and I'm wondering where that is. Why is Bristol pushing ahead with this unpopular scheme when other councils are abandoning them? The Prime Minister himself has even called for a review into low traffic neighbourhoods and livable neighbourhoods. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. We have one more person registered to speak on this topic, and that's Helen Hughes. Is Helen here?
Yes, I'm speaking to the same topic, and I'm a very keen cyclist. I cycle everywhere in Bristol, even up the hills and down the hills. I think there's great facilities for cycling, and I would just find that there are many strategies for making the air cleaner, for making areas more pleasant to live in, which don't involve quite such blunt tools as just preventing people from driving. And there needs to be more consideration of why people are driving through these areas, the businesses that are thriving there or trying to thrive there that will be affected by this. And of particular concern to me is the way that such strategies which use these blunt tools are very divisive and polarising in society, and we're seeing that everywhere. And I really would like political powers to examine that and see what they're doing to people and how they're dividing people by such strategies.
Thank you for your statement. Okay, this section of the meeting is actually divided into sort of two 15-minute sections, the first for statements. We've been through all the statements. Is there anybody here who has a statement that they haven't had an opportunity to speak to yet? I could invite them to speak. Otherwise, I will move straight on to questions. Okay, so we are going to now move on to public questions. Questions received have been published on the website and are going to be shared on the screen now. 36 questions were received from 35 members of the public. 18 of those have indicated that they wish to attend. We'll try to cover as many questions as possible in the time allowed, a little bit more than 15 minutes now. It may not be possible for everyone to speak, so we ask for your patience as we run through the questions in order. When I call you, please read your question out, and then we'll also at the same time try to show it up on the screen. Then the Mayor will reply verbally. Following the response from the Mayor, you'll be invited to ask one supplementary question. Okay? So, the first person is Anita Pearce. Please ask your question. Question about Eagle House.
Hello. My question is about the ex-youth club facility, Eagle House. We're part of the Eagle House Community Association, the building next door. We would like to know why the occupiers of the youth club, ex-youth club, have repeatedly broken the terms of their contract, and why have no steps been taken to remove them?
Thank you for your question. Marvin, can you answer, please?
Yeah, we're not aware of any complaints. We're not aware of any breaches of the contract. But if there are breaches reported, it will be investigated, as property do with all of our tenants.
So you have a supplementary question?
There has been substantial evidence sent in from others beside me, and I sent it in again today to Oliver with the information. I sent other information in that we've observed. The building was empty for 2 years, the people weren't there. They told someone to shut the water off, shut the electricity off. You know,
So is your question to ask the Mayor to address those that have been sent in today?
yes, please,
Okay.
Mayor.
Yeah, we'll follow up and find out where those points have been sent, and if tenants are found in breach of their contract, then the relevant action follows. But I haven't seen it to date. But as I said, we'll follow up with the relevant officers. Okay.
Okay, Anita, so you've got that commitment. So can we move on now to second person who has also got questions on Eagle House, and that's Margaret Rawlins.
Can you hear me? Yeah. I'm Margaret Rawlins and I live in New Quay Road, so I'm a local resident and I'm speaking on behalf of the residents as well. But what I like to ask, when asked at the last council to consider reopening the New Quay Road Youth Club, the Mayor pointed to the new proposal facilities at Inns Court. Does the Mayor know does the Mayor not realise the need is for local service to tackle a local problem now? Living in New Quay Road, the antisocial behaviour is gone beyond. There's no youth service tackling these problems.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
So we let the Mayor answer now. Thank you.
Well, I do appreciate you raising the concerns of antisocial behaviour. I do recognise the stress it brings to life. I mean, it was only a few weeks ago I had to ask some young people to move off my mum's wall because they'd taken to sit on it at night and being noisy and all the rest of it. And it's a stressful situation to go into. So, I do appreciate that. It is a challenge for us in Bristol at the moment. We have increasing levels of need. And I shared in the first session today that obviously you've come to the public forum with members of just really how the country's been left in quite a state after the last 15 years of disinvesting in our services and in the physical places as well, and local governments left to try and pick up the pieces. We support youth services all across Bristol. That includes detached services that go out to reach out to people without a base. Setting up a youth centre is not quite as straightforward as just identifying a building, because you have to have staff and organisation and insurance and equipment and all the rest of it. I do point to the, want to raise the youth zone because it is a multi-million-pound first-class investment in young people in South Bristol. It is the kind of venue that will be drawing on a wider catchment, across Bristol, and giving our young people the excellent quality interventions that they deserve and the city needs them to have.
Thank you. Margaret, do you have a supplementary question? Are you happy with the answer? Thank you very much for coming here today and asking those questions. Very important. We do have a question from Suzanne Audrey, but she's not sitting where she was sitting earlier, so she's left. Okay. So moving on then to David Wherrett. She'll get those. David Wherrett, who had a statement, is he gone? No, David's still there. Thank you.
Hi. The council officers on the issue of Redcatch Park and the tennis courts have not fully investigated all of the options for financial packages available and failed to relate to the local councillors before releasing the facts to the members of the community of Knoll on the issue. But instead, they continue to mislead the members of the local community into a false assessment of the situation. My question is, why?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a stretch to suggest that the officers have been misleading members of the public like that. We have a large number of people in this organisation who join it because they want to get good stuff done. And even members, I would say, in this chamber, when we disagree on issues, most people are here because they want to get good stuff done. So, I do reject the accusation made against the officers. The purpose of the consultation with the community was to get views on the proposals for how we make those tennis courts sustainable. We had a model that's across the rest of the city and has been successful, both in terms of raising the finance we need to make sure that the equipment stays in a good state, but also allows people to book. And we have had, a good number of bookings over the years. The numbers escape me right now, but the people that book to play has continued to be very high, and it's an approach that's been supported by the Lawn Tennis Association that has responsibility for encourage people into tennis. We did look at other options, but they were not recommended to be taken forward. The other options included no change, keep it as it is, and the second alternative option was to use one-off funds for maintenance without adoption of the operating scheme. I think people have been suggesting that there actually are pots of money out there that can be drawn on. That's really not true. I think one of the sobering realities for anyone interested in local government at this moment in time is to look at what's happened to Croydon, Woking, Northamptonshire and latterly Birmingham. The reality, it's not like it was 10 years ago where there was always a little bit of money down the back of the sofa. Local government literally is running out of money. So we have to find models of operating that make these kind of inventions, these kind of services accessible, but also wash their face.
Thank you. David, do you have a supplementary? I think that was quite a full answer, though.
I would just like to say that as far as I'm aware, and I've been told, there's well enough money to maintain the courts and to refresh them and refurbish them so that they could remain free to play for at least the next 5 years while they discuss this issue. And that was not relayed to members of the community.
Is that a question then? So is it just...
No, that's just my response back to Marvin.
Okay.
It's not, what he's saying is not actually the fact, and he's continuing what the council officers have been saying, which is not related what our councillors are actually saying to us. Okay, so
if someone is...
Yeah, please.
If someone is telling you that there are pots of money that have been squirreled away in the council that have been withheld from any of the parks or the physical assets we have in city, they're misleading you. If you get a copy of the trade publications, we'll send them to you ourselves, all about local government. If you look on the LGA website, you'll be able to have a more accurate understanding of the state of local government finance. It wouldn't be in our political interests to have money squirreled away and not spend it on interventions that make people happier. The truth is, we have these assets around the city. Maintaining them is now beyond the financial means of the local authority. We have to find new models of sustaining them. If we don't, earlier on we had a group of people in here who are very upset, and obviously disrupted the meeting about local council tax reduction scheme. You can see we're concentrating on all sorts of ways that we can find to save money, right, so that we can be within our budgetary limits. There is no alternative for local government other than meeting its budgetary challenges. So we have to innovate around the services and the facilities we have and make sure that they can stand up financially. If we don't, they'll just deteriorate in front of us.
Thank you. We're going to stop it there now because we've got a lot of questions and we want to be fair to everybody. Thank you. Okay, so we're now on to Sarah Kemlin, who's going to who has a question on the clean air zone. Sarah, are you here? Thank you.
I've got a couple of questions, and they focus on the Gloucester Road, Ashley Down Road area, but as an example of the wider context in Bristol of slow progress in delivering one city climate strategy and becoming a zero-emission transport city. And reports by Bristol University and the Centre for Alternative Technology show.
Sorry, we're struggling to hear you because there's yes, I think you need to because there's noise outside, and I apologise. I allowed myself to get distracted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
go for it.
So I've got a couple of questions which both focus on the Ashley Down Road, Gloucester Road area of Bristol, but as an example of the wider context of slow progress in delivering the One City climate strategy and becoming a zero-emission transport city. And University of Bristol reports and centres...
Your question's on the board, and I cannot marry the two things up. Okay, so I think what you have to do is read your question.
I welcome the fact that the clean air zone extends up White Ladies Road, incidentally a wealthy part of Bristol, but why does it not equally extend up the more polluted but less affluent A38?
Okay, let's answer that question now. Let's do it one by one. So the Mayor answers that question, and then you'll have a supplementary in it.
Just to say, the clean air zone doesn't just in terms of geography doesn't extend up White Ladies Road. We've gone for a charging option on private cars because it meant it was the smallest geographical area that was impacted while delivering compliant air quality in the shortest possible time. It is worth just explaining. I think I won't go into it in depth. I could say a lot, but on the clean air zone, it is in part a legal requirement to implement it. I think we have a moral environmental responsibility as well, but we have a legal requirement as a result of climate threatening national government. We take our numbers, car mix, journeys, vehicle mix, we plug it into the software of an agreed partner, and we get our geographical area it needs to cover, so we meet our legal responsibility. If we don't meet that legal responsibility, we end up in court and we lose that case, and we end up with reputational damage and charges. On delivery of the One City climate strategy, I mean, it's a challenge. Delivering on decarbonisation is a challenge. But there's a very, one thing I say often, a very naive statement made. All it takes is political will. I hear this from a couple of people in the chamber quite often. It takes political will and about £16 billion to decarbonise Bristol's economy. You don't retrofit homes unless there's a market and people get paid. You don't put air source heat pumps in. You don't put heat networks in unless there's finance involved. So I think we've done more than, I mean, we're being cited in Beijing right now, actually, by Foreign Commonwealth Office because of the work we've done on City Leap, because of the work we've done on 3CI, to identify a £200 billion decarbonisation investment pipeline across core cities, London Council, Scottish cities and key cities. So we're doing a lot of work to mobilise the finance needed to make this stuff, real, to make it happen. But I'm not going to deny it's a challenge. The last thing I would say, Lord Mayor, on that is it's important to recognise that taking the challenge on decarbonising Bristol's economy is for the council, but it's also for all the other organisations in the city that shape life in Bristol. Right? The health service is a massive estate manager. Our universities, our schools, and our climate strategy is not just about what Bristol City Council does. That would be, we offer a very small slice of the pie. It's about what the whole city does. And I think that's a key part of how we've really accelerated the action we've taken on climate change.
So, Sarah, I'm going to take that as your supplementary question because you did ask quite a lot of questions and you got a very full answer. So I'll go to your second question now. I'll go to your question about the bicycle lanes. Do you want to ask a question about the bicycle lanes and then get a supplementary on that?
Okay, I think that I got slightly diverted from the issue about emissions.
Well, I think we all got diverted.
Why has the bike lane on the A38 beside still not been restored? Can you hear me?
Sorry, I'm being distracted. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. You're going to ask your questions about the
lane on the A38 beside Horfield Common still not be restored. I asked the same question at a council meeting about 2 years ago and was told the work was in the pipeline.
We give the Mayor an opportunity to answer that question now, please.
Area for cyclists, pedestrians and the residents.
Okay, on the bike lane, look, I've just raised this with the transport team, and I'll look at the cycle lanes and whatever has been done. I wasn't aware of there being an issue up there, but I know that there are plans in place to put the maintenance, the relining of the routes in place. I'll find out what they are. We can come back to you on that.
Can we be very quick about it because you are you've asked a lot of extra questions here that got very confusing.
The democratic process. Has Bristol City Council adopted the targets recommended in the University of Bristol study that a maximum of 20% of journeys should be by car, 25% by public transport, and 55% of journeys by active travel?
Yeah, we'll come back to you on the specific comments, but what I would say, and it may come up later, it certainly can be issued a month, is the reason we've been supporting the mass transit system for the city, including elements in the densest parts of Bristol. We will not get the modal shift unless we have a chapter change in the transport offering that we make for Bristol people. We cannot get the modal shift simply by taking action that is punitive against car drivers. And we see the fruits of people feeling aggrieved at us interrupting their access to roads here today. We have to take actions that give people a viable alternative, offer them an opportunity to get out of their cars, and that's why we're trying to put those. I'm not going to be here for it, but that's why we're trying to make sure those schemes get locked in and delivered for the City of Bristol.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay. The 30 minutes allotted to this time is now over. But before we finish, what I would like to do is I'd like to address the people in the public gallery, and I'd like the cameras to show them. And I'd like to thank you for, in the first instance, following the democratic process, putting your questions, putting your statements in, coming here, and then standing in silence for half an hour holding your placards up. So I would like to have that acknowledged, and I'd like to thank you for attending in that manner today. Thank you, all the rest of you. I would like to just inform members of the public that the adjournment for today's meeting was expected to be at about 7:30. It might be a little bit later than that now. So I invite you to remain if you would like to hear other agenda items, or if not, I'd like you to leave as quietly as possible, but you can put your placards down. Thank you very much. Okay, straight on to agenda item 7, petitions notified by councillors. There have been 2 councillor petitions received for this meeting. Councillors are invited to speak for 1 minute. First of all, Councillor Goodman, would you like to present your petition?
Hello, yeah. So it's about the issue of Eagle House again. And I thank the people in the gallery who are here to represent the local community on that. And for the work that they're doing to raise awareness, to try to tackle antisocial behaviour on the estate, to try to involve children and young people, and people coming forward offering to run children's activities at Eagle House. Yeah, there's an online petition that's been submitted. There's also a written petition that I don't think got through the process. It was difficult to download the signatures, but thanks for gathering those signatures. And obviously we asked questions earlier, and I'd like to thank the Mayor for his answers earlier, and look forward to the community being involved in the design of that space for future use by children and young people, and to note that community members are very keen to be involved in helping running services there rather than relying on council funding. So thanks to the community for being here and bringing that very important issue forward.
And thank you, Councillor, for your petition, which received 125 signatures. So on to the second councillor's petition, which is Councillor Andrew Varney, who's got a petition, Save the Brislington Greenbelt, which has 429 signatories.
Thank you, my Deputy Lord Mayor. You've just stolen my first line. So I just want to say that Brislington residents are not NIMBYs. We welcome and support several brownfield developments in the area, which will deliver thousands of new homes in the coming years. And we are proud to be doing more than our fair share to help alleviate the housing crisis. However, what we cannot support is the inclusion of our precious Brislington Greenbelt for development in the new draft local plan. We have a climate and ecological emergency and need to protect our green spaces. The people of Brislington have already lost the Brislington Meadows, and it seems likely the Brislington Greenway Wildlife Corridor will also go under Labour's urban road building proposals. Can we at least save the Brislington Greenbelt so that local people have some access to green space in the future? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Varney. Okay, now we're on to agenda item 8, which is the annual report of the Audit Committee. This report is for noting. I'd like to call on Councillor Andrew Brown to move the report as he is the chair of the Audit Committee. Councillor Brown, you have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, my Deputy Lord Mayor. The cynics in this chamber often claim that all an Audit Committee chair has to do in presenting the annual report is dust off their speech from last year and repeat it. I would like to refute this suggestion. I stuck it in ChatGPT and it spewed out something instead. I'd like to start by thanking various people. First of all, the officers that support the committee's work, Simba Mazarawi and Alison Mullis from Internal Audit and Alison Taylor from Democratic Services. In addition, I'd like to thank Denise Murray, who attends each session and fields a wide range of questions from members, as well as those officers who attend for individual items at need. Thanks to are also due to John Roberts and his team from the external auditors, who also provide a report and attend each meeting, which is something that doesn't necessarily happen in other authorities. I would like to thank my fellow committee members, and in particular Simon Cookson and Adebola Adebayo as the independent members who bring valuable experience from outside this council. Regrettably, last year we had a member who did not engage with the committee, but we seem to have got off to a better start this year, and I look forward to working with all members throughout the year. This report covers my first full year as chair, and as you all have seen, we have covered an extensive range of items. Each report is key to the committee meeting its primary objective, that is, receiving assurance on the governance and control processes of the council, and where those are found wanting, in gaining assurance that measures are being put in place to address those deficiencies. As outlined in the paper, we have generally received the assurance sought. For example, our internal audit function has had a positive peer review from, I was going to say Nottingham, but I think it might be Northampton. Progress has been made in signing off our outstanding accounts against a background of national issues which have held those back over the past few years. However, that is not to say that there are not issues which continue to require work or challenges that the Council will face moving forward. A number of these are listed in the report, and I anticipate that colleagues responding to the report will mention these. As well as issues that I have raised here previously, the external auditors have identified areas of significant weakness and make key recommendations for improvement. And as we move forward into the committee system, these will become challenges for us all to grapple with, even more so than now. And I have drastically undertimed my speech, so I'm going to stop there and let the debate move on.
Nobody will complain about that. Thank you very much. Pithy and succinct, that's what we want. Okay, so now can I call on Councillor Tony Dyer, please, to speak on the motion.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'd like to echo what Councillor Andrew Brown has said, and also I would like to congratulate him on the hard work, effort and good humour in which he has chaired the Audit Committee. It has been a real pleasure to be working alongside him. As Councillor Brown has said, we have covered a wide range of items and areas, and I realise that Audit Committee reports are not to everybody's taste, but what I will say, if I was going to pick up one report that we've covered, that I would recommend the wider membership of this chamber and those you may be thinking of becoming councillors next year to look at, it would be the external auditor's annual report. Even through that looks at 2021 and 2021-22, the challenges it highlights face us still today and will face us again next year. There are real difficulties facing the financial challenges that this and all local authorities are facing at the moment. In order for us to be able to deliver the services, that requires us to take a very robust control of our serves and how we spend. It also means we need to look at how we can transform not just individual departments, but the culture as well. What I'll finish off with, however, is one point which is not in the report, and this is my own personal opinion, and that is this. Until we get a government that is prepared to treat local government as a full partner and a properly funded partner, it is going to become ever more difficult for us to deliver the services that our residents rely on. At the moment, at present, it is a legal requirement for us to deliver a financially balanced budget. It should also be a legal requirement for us to deliver a socially balanced and just budget. And we need a government that's prepared to give us the means to deliver that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dyer. I'd like now to call on Councillor Zoe Goodman to speak on behalf of the Labour Group. Thank you.
Hello.
3 minutes.
So as we've heard, the Audit Committee has a key role in assessing whether the Council is managing its risks effectively and having adequate internal control and governance arrangements so it uses its resources efficiently and effectively. I'd like to also thank all the members of the committee, including the independent members, for their searching questions and the chairing by Councillor Brown, which, as we've heard, makes sure that we keep things on track. And I'd like to thank all the council officers who attend, particularly the internal audit team and the external auditors. It's very great that we get them and we're able to ask them searching questions in those meetings. We considered 39 reports during the year, in our 6 formal meetings. It's a lot to go through. And Value and Ethics Committee, in which I sat with other members, also met twice. We did, as you've heard, identify some areas for improvement, and we'll be monitoring over this municipal year. As we've been noted, the committee has been advised by the Chief Internal Audit that satisfactory progress is being made in the implementation of those actions, but he's emphasised the need to make sure that these improvements are given priority, and I look forward to working with other members of the committee in making sure that happens. I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you, Zoe. Okay, now I'd like to ask Councillor Jonathan Hucker to speak on behalf of the Conservative Group. Jonathan.
Thank you, my Deputy Lord Mayor. I do have a dental issue, so please bear with me. It's difficult to speak at the moment. In the period covered by the report, the committee has received and considered a significant amount of detailed technical information. The committee's deliberations have been carried out in a spirit of cross-party cooperation and goodwill. I would like to thank my colleagues on the committee and officers for the support that members have been given. Effective financial management requires good quality financial reporting. I think there is room for improvement in this area. For example, inaccurate forecasts of the capital expenditure programme have resulted in a treasury management strategy that is costly and inefficient. A report to Cabinet in January indicated that the financing cost for the Colston Hall / Bristol Beacon refurbishment would amount to 2.3 million per year over 50 years. This assumed an interest rate of 1.5%. However, the cost of 50-year money from the Public Works Loan Board is currently almost 6%, and the rate payable on the Council's existing borrowings is 4.5%. Therefore, in my opinion, the report did not give a true and fair view of the cost of financing this project. The Council only produce a balance sheet and a cash flow statement once a year, by which time it is already out of date. Nobody can understand the Council's actual financial position at any point in time when this information is not available. Financial reporting is fragmented. The Council only produce forecasts and not actual accounts for Cabinet. Accruals in work in progress are only processed at year end. Actual costs incurred are not being captured in the accounting system throughout the year. Therefore, budget holders must manage their cost centres in capital projects without visibility of accurate and timely financial information. The 2020-21 accounts were finally completed on the 8th of June, over 2 years after the end of the financial year. The 2021-22 accounts are still to be completed. This level of performance would not be remotely acceptable in the private sector. In truth, this is not uncommon in the public sector, and I recognise there are mitigating circumstances. However, the Chief Executive of Public Sector Audit Appointments has said that late completion of accounts is beginning to seriously undermine the financial management, governance and accountability of public bodies.
Thank you, Councillor. It seemed like a very detailed and forensic report, so thank you for that. I'd like to invite Councillor Gary Hopkins to speak on behalf of the Knoll Community Party.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. One item which stands out to me is delivery of financial savings. Not easy. And having sat on bodies looking at the proposed savings and the way that they can actually be done, I've got to say that in some cases there's considerable confidence given by officers, others not so much. And I think it's hopefully something that the Audit Committee can actually look at in terms of how these savings are thought through, because just having a figure thrown down from above without thinking about it thoroughly and analysing it properly, that's when things go wrong. When it's thoroughly thought through and the department have fully bought into it, then it can work. And we're seeing examples of both. So I would hope that the Audit Committee can actually pay some heed to the things that before they go wrong. Because, let's face it, good governance and the way that things are done is the Audit Committee, not just finding out where the cash went. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, Mayor Rees, you have an opportunity to respond to the debate if you wish. No? Councillor Brown, you have an opportunity to sum up.
Thank you, my Deputy Lord Mayor. Thank you to everyone for their contributions. And thank you, Tony, for your kind words. And I'm going to come back to what you said about funding in a moment. We did, as Councillor Goodman say, look at a good number of reports, 39 over the year, and one did looked at deliverability of savings and how those can be made more recurring. It's part of the internal audit work that's been done. Councillor Hucker mentioned the pressures in audit, public audit in this country, and there's been a number of issues which we've discussed in this chamber before that's held back the signing off of accounts, but there's also other pressures in the system. The whole system is a pressure cooker, and it ties in with the way that local government as a whole is funded. I think it's all of a piece, the way that the audit's set up and the way that local government is treated, and sooner or later something has to give. And I don't think, audits are a political body, but I don't think it's a particularly political point when you look at what gets put out by the LGA, for example, to say that and the way that councils of differing political stripes have had to declare Section 114 up notices that public finance is being squeezed from every direction possible at the moment. Sooner or later something has to give, and what should be giving is central government freeing up the reins of money to local government and giving them much more control over that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so that concludes agenda item 8. The next agenda item is the annual report of the Human Resources Committee. This report is for noting. I'd like to call on Councillor Farah Hussain to move the report, as she is Deputy Chair of the HR Committee. Thank you. You have 3 minutes, Farah.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. As Vice Chair, I'm pleased to move the HR Committee's annual report. The HR Committee's covered a lot in last year, too much to mention in 3 minutes speech, so I'm using my time today to highlight some key aspects of the work. Pay gaps have been in the news recently due to the Birmingham Council attributing their budget deficit to a long-standing equal pay dispute. That and having their budget cut by the government by 60p in the pound. But this dispute shows the importance of scrutinising the pay gap, be it for gender or other protected characteristics. I'm disappointed that the gender pay gap within the Council has risen slightly this year, but this could be due to the formula in how it's calculated being updated rather than the gap itself increasing. I would like to stress it's worth noting that there is no legal obligation to report on other pay gaps aside from the gender pay gap, and that Bristol City Council is one of a small number of employers to report on the pay gap for race, disability and LGBT. I'm glad that the Council is going above and beyond its statutory duties, and we know that since 2016, the race pay gap has gone from 15% to 8.7%. That's really promising work and a testament to the work carried out by Marvin, Asha and Council staff. Likewise, the committee is pleased that the Council is going for Bronze Award in the Armed Forces Covenant, a voluntary agreement that ensures our Armed Forces veterans are well treated. I very much hope we're successful in achieving that award and can progress to gold standard. The committee recently heard the Avon Pension Fund's annual report. This June, the fund announced it would be investing a further $700 million into funding aligned with the Paris Climate Accords, in line with its commitment to be net zero by 2050 and to cut its emission in its equity portfolio by 2/3 by 2030. This, of course, is welcome, but I would like to see it go further. I would like to thank committee members and staff for their work this year. As the report acknowledges, we're making good progress on issues within the HR remit, and I expect the good progress to continue throughout the 23-24 municipal year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so now I'd like to call on Councillor Tim White to speak on behalf of the Green Group.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I was going to reserve my comments on this because, frankly, it's quite a straightforward report and Farah's covered most of the detail. But as Councillor Francis, my colleague, is unwell, I wanted to make just a couple of points. I mean, it's not the most high-profile committee, let's be honest, but I think that does it a disservice. I think, as Farah said, we're a big employer in the city, and this is our opportunity to look at some really important issues like equality, as you've mentioned, like where our pensions are invested. It also gives a forum for unions to talk to us directly as councillors, which I think is really important. So I just wanted to big it up, really. That was my first point. The second point is we pretty much agree all the time. There is one point where we haven't this year, and that caused one of the extraordinary meetings, and that's around the pay policy. And the pay policy is something that we have to do statutorily, and it is about people that are employed by the council and the sort of pay, the pay differentials between the lowest and highest paid. And as such, that's something we do every year. What it doesn't cover, and what members have raised before, is our spend on interims, consultants, etc. And that is something we've committed to looking at in next year's work programme. So I very much support this. Please read it. It's only about 3 or 4 pages long, and it gives you a good idea of what we actually do in the committee. And I'm really proud of what we've achieved. And again, I thank the officers and fellow councillors on that committee. And I shall sit down.
Thank you very much, Councillor White. Okay, now I'd like to turn to Councillor Richard Eddy to speak on behalf of the Conservative Group.
Deputy, it gives me great pleasure to endorse this report, which details the work of the committee over the last year. As Farah and Tim have already said, the committee worked hard to look at our remit very effectively, in my view. My thanks also go to the Director of HR, Steph Griffin, and also the Head of HR, James Brereton, and their team who've been very helpful. There are 2 issues which I would like to highlight. One, Tim has mentioned, actually, the outstanding gap, in my view, in the pay policy between the meaningful difference between the 10 times the highest paid pay is no more than 10 times that of the lowest. To be meaningful, it does need to include our interims and our consultants, who, frankly, in comparison with those at the bottom of the pair, are paid megabucks. Secondly, it is an absolute disgrace that staff of our arms length organisations, such as Bristol Waste, are excluded from the HR committee and any other committee of this council. I believe that's fundamentally unjust. I have regularly tried to raise the concerns of the 200 staff who were transferred to Bristol Waste last spring, and repeatedly I've been told there isn't any mechanism on the HR committee or on any other committee or commission to look at their concerns. I personally find that's a disgraceful and a complete dereliction of human rights. I certainly wish that this council actually didn't resort to, frankly, HR policies and practices which looked more towards those of tin pot dictatorship than a core city in the 21st century.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, now I'd like to turn to Councillor Sarah Classic to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, my Deputy Lord Mayor. I would first like to start by recognising the good work of the HR officers, as articulated in this annual report, and the work put into bringing this to full council. I would especially like to thank Steph and James for their work and collaboration with the committee and all the other committee members. I am pleased to see the progress we've made over the past year in supporting the council's workforce. Yet as we celebrate our achievements, we must also acknowledge that there is more to be done. The report highlights areas where we can further improve, and it's crucial that we embrace these opportunities for growth. An avenue for improvement lies in our collaboration with unions and staff-led groups, for example. These groups represent the diverse voices within our workforce, and their insights are invaluable. Informal meetings that we've attended have definitely been eye-opening insight into the views of our workforce, and we must recognise there's untapped potential here. Staff-led groups can serve as a bridge connecting our employees' perspectives with the Council's policies. By working more closely with these groups, we can tap into a wellspring of ideas and insights that can drive positive change. Furthermore, while we've made commendable strides in areas like equalities, inclusion and well-being, our journey is far from over. The challenges our workforce face in today's dynamic work environment demand ongoing attention and adaptation. We must continue to find innovative ways to address things like pay gaps, enhance recruitment and retention, and support overall well-being of our employees. As we move forward, let's view this report as a foundation, a springboard for an even stronger HR practices. It's a testament to our progress, but it should also inspire us to aim higher. Our organisation's success hinges on the strength of our workforce, and it's our responsibility to provide them with the best support and opportunities. So in conclusion, I would like to thank the HR team and all those involved in crafting this report. Let us embrace the findings with a spirit of continuous improvement. Our commitment to working to fostering an inclusive employee-centred approach will be the key to our success as Bristol City Council as an employer. Thank you.
Okay, now I'd like to turn to Councillor Garrick Hopkins to speak on behalf of the Knoll Community Party.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I too share the concerns with regard to the way the staff were treated with Bristol Waste. That was under a previous director, and basically what actually happened there was not good. It was a blot on the good name of the Bristol City Council, what happened to those staff. But that was a previous director. I also share the concerns with regard to the pay policy. I know that the government have a set thing, and it says that it's people who are actually technically employed by the council. But we've had instances where we've had people earning absolute fortunes as consultants who've actually been self-employed with the council for a very long time. And even if the council do have to put in a statement that complies with the standard procedure that government have, they could also put down a supplementary report to that, which actually indicates the true position and takes into account some of those very highly paid consultants that the council actually have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So now, Mary East Marvin, would you like to respond? Okay. Councillor Hussain, you have an opportunity to sum up.
No comment.
Okay. Thank you. That concludes agenda item 9. I feel I'm bound to say we've had a meeting with a huge amount of energy at the beginning, and I did come out a little bit teacherish there when I was telling everybody what they had to do. Equally, my teacherish moment now is forcing me to say that our next item is an item that we're going to vote on. Those 2 items were for noting, and perhaps that's why we haven't had a huge amount of engagement. But I do urge people to listen to the speeches, and let's try to be in the room. There's a lot of people not in the room at the moment, and it does us all a disservice. So the next item is an item that you're required to vote on, even if it is only an A or an A vote. So please, it is the extension of the Chief Executive and Head of Paid Service appointment. I'd like, first of all, to call on Councillor Tony Dyer to move this report.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Unfortunately, you haven't bigged me up like that. I'm probably about to deliver the shortest speech of my life.
Yeah, but they're all listening now.
Deputy Lord Mayor, I rise to propose that the Council approves the recommendation in the papers and on the screen in front of them. And too long. No speech is too long for Councillor Mark to Weston to interrupt. that helps extend it a little time. But all joking aside, this is very important. We are going to be moving into a very traumatic period of time where a lot of change is required, and we do need some stability, and this is one way of securing that stability. Having empty chairs around the table may look good on a photo op. It's not for good governance. We don't need empty chairs. We need people ready to start work.
Thank you. Okay, now I'd like to call on Councillor Richard Eddy to second the report.
Deputy, I too am going to disappoint you. But not the chamber. I'm probably going to deliver the quickest speech of my life. This is pragmatic and sensible, so it's unusual it's proposed in this chamber, but I urge members to support it. It has a unanimous agreement of all group leaders, all political groups, the reconvened selection committee, the HR committee, so I urge you to support it.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay. So the recommendations now are shown on the screen. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Thank you. I declare the motion approved. Thank you. Okay, so despite that includes agenda item 10, and that gets us to where we are going to adjourn for 20 minutes. It is actually 7:20 now, which is earlier than we expected to get here, so that's a good thing at least. So if we can adjourn now, and I will ask everybody to be back promptly in their seats at 7:20. Thank you. We are starting with agenda item 11, which is the golden motion, which is a comprehensive review of highways priorities and practices. The motion will be shown on the screen in the room during the proposed speech. I'd like to ask now Steve Smith of the Conservative Group to move the motion. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you very much, Deputy Lord Mayor. Now, the normal process when moving a motion here is to rebut the opposing arguments at the end of the debate. But we know what's coming, so I thought let's get it out of the way now. Nasty old Tories, blah, 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 not enough money, blah, blah, austerity, blah, blah. Now, if your answer is going to be that government needs to spend more money, that's great. Please explain where government's going to get it from. In any case, even if you manage to find your magic money tree and maybe talk to the MP for North West about that one, you missed the point. This motion is not about how much we spend. This motion is about how we spend it and how we look after our city's roads. Now, I'm sure I'm not the only councillor here that, by way of a shorthand, talks to residents about the Highways Department. But we all know, don't we, there isn't a Highways Department. There are lots of little bits of Highways Department scattered all over the council, most of which don't seem to know what each other are doing at any given time. And this manifests itself all over the place. In our ward, Westbury and Henleys, there are currently 2 major roads programmes ongoing, both of which are named after the A4018, despite being entirely separate and despite the fact that one of them goes nowhere near the A4018. Now, this happens because they're run by different people in different bits of the council, and one was started with no knowledge that the other one ever existed. We also have, or we should have, a new SIL-funded zebra crossing on Cranford Lane. Now, should have, I say, because 4 years after trying to fund the thing, or after we did fund the thing, we're still waiting. But I also had a meeting a couple of months ago with the engineer responsible for this zebra crossing, which is about 100 yards away from the A4018, and he had no idea that the A4018 programme, either of them, existed. I had to introduce him to the programme manager so that they could speak to one another. Now, that's not how this is supposed to work. And that is why we need the comprehensive review of the structures and the priorities and the way that we look after our city's roads that this motion calls for. Now, it also calls for lane rental. We've all seen roadworks where roads are closed for weeks and weeks and weeks in order to accomplish a couple of days' worth of actual work. And this is because the utilities that want to close a road pay one small fee and they get the right to close it for 18 months. There's no incentive for them to get the work done to suit or to minimise the disruption to residents. In our ward again, the A4018 is currently closed. The main road for all our residents use to get in and out of town has been closed since the middle of August. It should have been 2 weeks to reopen before school started. It's just been extended again today for the second time until the end of September. No comeback, no consequence for Wells and West Utilities. They can do what they want, and the residents who are disrupted by the works just have to lump it. That cannot be right. We're asking for lane rental to be introduced so that utilities have to pay by the day when they close these roads, and their incentives are lined up with the needs of residents. And that's why we commend this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. OK, so now I'd like to call on Councillor Graham Morris to second the motion.
Thank you, my Deputy Lord Mayor. Obviously, I second the motion. We have seen over years just how much the infrastructure of this city has been neglected from successive ruling parties. They basically just kicked the can down the road. It feels like every day there's another piece of infrastructure is identified as failing, and the cost of putting this right is running into hundreds of millions of pounds. With PFI impacting frontline services, a long-term debt in place from the Colston Hall, as well as the unknown liability regarding the arena offices, our finances are greatly restricted for decades to come. Therefore, it's really important that we do the best that we can with what we've got. And this motion is designed to identify those issues with the highways and see how we can work to prevent the situation from getting worse. Whilst we're trying to stop the situation getting worse, we need to ensure that we don't create future problems, particularly around traffic flow. If we look at Stockwood Ward at the moment, we're going to be squeezed by the strategic corridor work around the A37, A4018 and the A4 Wecker proposals. Both ideas that will create new issues, significant issues, and problems with rat running through the ward. Therefore, we need the significant mitigations to be in place and agreed before any work goes ahead. And there's no point in saying that the area committees will cover the costs, because it won't, because there's no money in Area Committee 6. Turning back to the other highways issues, we need to be aware and remember the miles of concrete slabs that we have in this city. They've been left and they're rocking and they're causing a whole variety of issues to many residents in this city. And we also need, again, to work with the utility companies, because when they dig into a slab, or which they have the right, they break the whole slab, which then creates that ongoing problems. We should try to work with them to see how we can resolve this. There's issues with the adherence of paint to road surfaces, and they all sound minor things, but when taken together, they all add up to a series of problems. And of course, I'm obviously very concerned to see the two largest parties collude together to try to weaken our motion. Our residents want to see the action and the efficient delivery of improvements and repairs, rather than the parties trying to blame everything on the current government and not taking responsibility for the PFI that's going to be around for decades to come and the other financial burdens that are coming upon the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So, as referred to, there has been an amendment from the Labour and Green groups, which has been published online as a supplement earlier this afternoon. So now I would like to ask Councillor Fabian Breckles from the Labour group to move the amendment.
Thank you, my Deputy Lord Mayor. I rise to move an amendment to this motion on potholes, which the Greens will second. It corrects some errors and puts the pothole issue into some context. I do find it ironic that the Tories are bringing a motion on crumbling infrastructure when Crumbly Concrete is closing schools across the UK and it's their Prime Minister that cut the funding to fix it while he was Chancellor. As the Conservatives should know, most pothole repair funding comes from central government. £1 million from the Pothole Not Enough Action Fund is only a tenth of what we actually need. It's just another example of deliberate government underfunding. To fix the national road repairs backlog would cost about £14 billion. So all we're getting is some loose change. A bit of an insult, really. We do accept that the temporary traffic regulation order system used by utilities isn't up to the job. But the lane rental scheme is no silver bullet. The amendment explains why, and we can revisit the idea, but I would suggest waiting until we see if the rules change in our favour. We have been fixing potholes since 2016, so we reject any claims of negligence. Remember, the Tory government cut our grant funding by 60% since 2010. Our tank is running empty, and we are running the city on fumes. Only last week, Birmingham City Council effectively went bankrupt, and today I found that at least 26 councils in some of the poorest areas of the country are considering declaring effective bankruptcy within the next 2 years. Just how long can any council survive if these funding cuts are not addressed? And as for managing finances, the Tory government lost some £16 billion from COVID loan schemes due to fraud and errors. More than enough to fix all the roads in the country, as it turns out. Add to that, after 13 years of austerity, national debt has increased by nearly 40% of GDP. So where has the money gone? And it's not just potholes, is it? About 22.6 million in repairs are needed on the M32 flyover in Eastville. As a trunk road, that is government responsibility. So why wasn't it maintained properly? Proper maintenance prevents larger bills later. Everyone should know that, even Rishi Sunak. And yes, we are defending our corporate priorities and reaffirming them. Vulnerable people must come first. The fact is, it's not our corporate priorities that's the problem, it's government funding. To improve our roads, we challenge all party group leaders to lobby the government for more effective funding. 10% of what we really need won't cut it, but we know that already. Please support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabian. Now I'd like to ask Councillor Lisa Stone from the Green Group to second the amendment.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. First of all, I'd just like to say I'm quite tired. I've spent the whole week inducting a lot of students at South Bristol College, City Bristol College, because they take A-level students, not like some other colleges across the city. However, right, I would like to thank Stephen Smith and the Conservative councillors bringing the motion to the chambers. I'd also like to thank Tim Rippington for favourably amending this motion. Thank you very much. And I'd also like to thank David Wilcox for strengthening this motion. It's a clear indication of the things to come, I would hope. As for the motion itself, I really do applaud it. Now that it has been amended to incorporate pedestrians and cyclists, because we all know the state of Bristolian roads, they are an absolute mess, as you are probably well aware. I feel that there are more potholes than there are actually smooth roads. And as a cyclist, they are just not fit. As a cyclist myself, they are just not fit for purpose. Quite frankly, they are quite dangerous. This is why I'm wearing my corporate high-vis vest. I hope that you can all see me. Okay, right? Because I had to cycle here, as I usually do, to make sure I don't get knocked over by a pothole. So, the Green Party welcomes the urgent review of the Highways Department and indeed the need for a Scrutiny Inquiries Day. So thank you very much for that. We would fully support that. The outcomes of which I would hope would form a strategy because, as we've all just heard, £1 million is not enough to even make a dent, unlike the roads, which have many dents in them. If this motion could expedite greater investment to make our roads safer for all those that use them, especially cyclists, then this motion will help the adopted Vision Zero approach to eliminate road deaths in Bristol by 2030, brought to council by the Green Party just before the summer. Another example of some cross-party collaboration that gained unanimous support across the chamber for a worthy cause. The motion also sets out to find additional funds through a lane rental scheme that will help finance required repairs, as you have also expressed over there in the Labour Party, especially painting markings. Many cycle lanes that were hard to get an agreement for in the first place are disappearing, along with double yellow lines, and that are now unenforceable as they are so faded. Meaning selfish and dangerous parking is being allowed. The irony of this situation is that emergency vehicles are sometimes being blocked as they try to respond to the injuries caused by poor conditions of the roads. Therefore, if this motion helps reduce fatalities, we wholeheartedly, the Green Party, hope it prevails.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. So we will now hear on speakers on the amendment. First of all, I'd like to call on Councillor Jeff Gollop to speak on behalf of the Conservative Group.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor, Deputy Lord Mayor. I find it very sad, but not surprising, that we have a politically motivated amendment. You know, it's a pity that we can't actually work on agreeing on the things that every one of us is concerned about because of the expressions made to us by our residents. But no, we can't do that. Anybody would think there was an election coming up. What is perhaps surprising is to find that the Greens and the Labour Party are in bed together already on this one. Where is this heading? I don't know. I'm not sure I want to think about that too much either. But I want to pick on some of the points that my colleague Steve was talking about. And there is one point in here that I actually found myself agreeing with, which is a review of the system called Fix My Don Alexander. Now, I think it is remarkable, if this authority is committed to delivering service, that it still maintains a system that will automatically tell many residents that a job is completed, even when it's not. That is wonderful. How much effort did we put into working out how to deliver those statistics? How many questions have I submitted to MP and councillor inquiries about it? Well, actually, Deputy Lord Mayor, it's exactly the same number as I've not had answered. That just shows contempt for our residents. And that is where we're going wrong. We all suffer from that contempt being shown to our residents. We all suffer from our residents not being listened to on the really important issues that matter to them. I can give you anecdotal evidence. One pothole in a small side road, reported in 3 consecutive years because it was not filled properly on each occasion. Is that good value for money? I don't think so. Are we monitoring? And I hear what Marvin says, and I'm not directing this at Marvin. I really don't expect the Mayor to be checking up on whether we're getting value for money on individual contracts. But believe me, within our system, members, this is failing. We are not getting the value for money because we are not checking on poor quality services delivered time and time again. So my plea, members, is I wish you'd vote against this amendment, accept our motion for what it is, and saying, please, can we work together on how we give a better service to the people we care about, which is the residents of Bristol. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gollop. Thank you. Now I'd like to call on Councillor Tim Kent to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. On balance, we feel we can support this amendment. We do feel elements of the amendment are a little contradictory in places, claiming that the number of potholes has greatly reduced, while saying that to fix all the potholes would actually require a 10 times increase in government funding. Those two phrases don't seem to quite add up to me. I suspect what was meant to be conveyed is that given the long-term degradation of our roads caused by Britain's unique and glorious weather, the constant increase in traffic, and most importantly, the very severe underfunding over many decades, that to bring roads up to an acceptable maintenance standard, we would need 10 times more funding, which would result in far less potholes. So I just sort of point out that between your rewrite of the amendment, I think you may have got slightly lost as you added in extra sentences on top of each other. We are interested in the idea of the lane rental scheme as proposed by the Conservative group. We think good ideas should be welcomed. We are concerned that the amendment seems to be a little dismissive of this option and hope that minds remain open to consider this option for the future. As said, on balance, we will support this as there are elements that we do like that are brought in by the amendment. And I believe Councillor Varney will speak further on our thoughts for the whole motion. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so now I'd like to call on Councillor Gary Hopkins to speak on behalf of the Knoll Community Party. Gary.
Hi. So it's deja vu all over again. And basically, some 15 years ago, I had responsibility for this area. And we considered lane charging very seriously. We were looking at it as a potential way forward because it was seeming to be working on motorways. But there was a couple of problems with it. One was that the more serious offenders in terms of not actually getting on with the job were the council themselves rather than the companies. Now, some of them were behaving very well, but what they actually did when we did say that we were considering lane charging, they got together and they approached the council for voluntary agreement, which actually, for a short while, did improve things. They agreed standards, they agreed timetables, etc. And that actually was working for a while. But it's just been allowed to slip. Everything's just gone to mush again, which is very, very regrettable. And now we've got a position where, you know, as has been said, there's no incentive for the companies to actually get on with the job. I'll give an example of things going wrong. A road in our ward, which isn't a main trunk road, but is quite busy. We were getting complaints from residents of potholes on there, which was quite concerning, and you know, a couple of people with falling off bikes, that sort of thing. So basically, we reported it into the officer system, and they said, oh, well, no, there was 12 or however many potholes along there, and they've all been fixed. So we went along and checked, because we didn't think they'd been fixed. And most of these potholes were quite large, like moon craters, with tiny dollops of asphalt in the middle of them, not fixing them at all. So we took the photographs and we sent them to the officer that was in charge of the repairs. Now, fair play, he said, oh, we got that one wrong, didn't we? But it had been recorded on the system as having been dealt with and fixed. So that same day, they were all fixed. But we had the conversation with him, and what he actually said was that the road surface was so poor, it needed proper resurfacing rather than just filling the pothole. But that was a different budget, so they weren't connected. And that, again, is part of the problem on the council with the way that this system actually works or doesn't work. So, in terms of the amendment, there are pluses and negatives, but really, lane charging is something that you can rattle around at. But when it comes to practical implementation, it's not as simple as it looks. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, so now I'd like to call on Councillor Breckles if he would like to respond to the movement.
Well, I mean, okay, I hear what's being said about, you know, the need to check that works are being carried out. But again, that means having enough officers to actually do it. And one of the consequences of the hollowing out of council finance, certainly for us, is that while in protecting frontline services, we find that we're struggling with backroom office staff, and therefore we're unable to, you know, check things in the way that we would like to. So it's still back down to government finance. Having enough money on the table will enable us to get the repairs carried out and send officers down to check it's been done. I've had to deal with botched repairs in my own ward, so I do know what that's about. And, you know, you just have to send the contractor out to do it again, and hopefully we don't pay them again. But, you know, at the end of the day, we're running on fumes, and that can't continue.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. So now, Councillor Smith, would you like to respond as mover of the motion to the debate on the amendment?
Thank you. I think I'll just reiterate what's already been said, that this amendment misses the point of the motion. It reduces it to a question of how much money there is. This motion isn't about how much we spend. It isn't about whether or not lane rental would raise any revenue. I think that's slightly bizarre. That's not really the point of it. It's about how we organise ourselves both within the council and how we get utility companies to crack on and get the job done and minimise disruption for residents. That's what we're proposing. So I support the original motion and not the amendment.
Thank you. Marvin, do you have any comments to respond to the amendment? No, okay. Okay, so now we're going to move to the vote. This will be an e-vote. Please ensure that you're sitting in your allocated seats so that your vote is recorded accordingly. You are voting on the motion, and the vote will be open on the amendment. Sorry, yes, I know, it says, I was about to, yes. You're voting on the amendment, and the vote will be open for 15 seconds. Okay, so please vote now. Oh, that looks weird. It's new. Have we seen this before? Like this in July? No, that's all. No, the world and some other knows that, don't they?
Almost.
Okay, we've got.
Top pins doing?
What is it? We should get this right now.
42 for one abstention.
Okay. So it's the amendment is carried. Okay, so the vote result is 42 for, 13 against and 1 abstention. So the amendment is carried. Thank you.
Point of order. Is Councillor Christopher Davis here?
Yeah.
Very good question.
No.
Because we've got him down as abstaining, so I don't know what's going wrong with the vote there.
Okay, so he is the abstention, is he?
But he's not here. So
He's absent rather than abstained. Okay. Did you, Councillor Hopkins, is there... You abstained? Oh, I see. So Councillor Hopkins, and are you down as voting for? Are you in your correct seat? Yeah. Okay. What do we have to do, Tim? Do we have to change the motion? It doesn't change the sentence. Okay, it doesn't change the outcome. I think we can note the fact, if anybody ever wants to come back, we've had the discussion. Christopher Davies isn't here. Gary voted as an abstention. And let's move on. Thank you. Okay, so we will now hear from speakers on the motion as amended. So I would first like to call on Councillor David Wilcox to speak on behalf of the Green Group.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I rise to support the amendment from my colleagues opposite. Bristol could be gridlocked due to roadworks. Any proposal to improve the deliverability of these schemes to save time and reduce pollution has the endorsement of Bristol Green Party. However, there needs to be equity in how maintenance is applied. Potholes are a real danger to cyclists, and cracked pavements inhibit people of all ages from walking. All repairs made by both utility companies and the council to roads and pavements in Bristol need to return the surface to a gold standard. I agree that more must be done to combat potholes. Each fatal road traffic collision costs the economy over £2 million, as well as human lives, and fixing potholes will help. I would, however, like to take this opportunity to dispel some myths about how roads are funded and maintained. The first myth is about road tax, or to give its proper name, vehicle excise duty. This duty is nothing to do with the right to use the roads. It's based on the amount of pollution caused by the vehicle. And I'm glad that it is recognised that electric vehicles will be added to VED in 2025, as they do still produce pollution. The second myth is that the vehicle owners actually pay for the roads. That link was broken in 1937, prompted by work done by Winston Churchill. Since this time, this form of taxation has gone straight into Westminster coffers to be spent on whatever Westminster wants. The Office of Budget Responsibility expects vehicle excise duty to bring in £8 billion for the year 23-24 and fuel duty to bring in £25 billion. The DfT supplements council budgets to the tune of around £1 billion per year on filling potholes. On the local authority run road network. National Highways spends £5 billion a year on building and maintaining the motorway network. The money brought into Westminster, £33 billion, versus the £6 billion spent on building and maintenance, should not be looked in isolation. The economic cost of air pollution is £19 billion. Obesity, £10 billion. And if you believe the Daily Express, pothole damage costs road users £1.5 billion per year. The current government is subsidising the use of the roads primarily for private motorists by at least £2.5 billion per year. Just imagine the monetary savings and the enhanced quality of life that could be made if we subsidised clean transport and active travel by that instead. The funding gap will get ever more significant as the funding from vehicle excise duty and fuel duty reduces through electric cars. Westminster needs to urgently consider road user pricing to make the use of roads more equitable and economical. It's not only utility companies that should have the right to ask for temporary...
Can I ask you to start winding up now, please?
The motivation of this motion makes complete sense if we are going to keep Bristol moving by car, lorry, cycle or foot.
Thank you. Okay, so now I'd like to call on Councillor Don Alexander to speak on behalf of the Labour Group.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. As Councillor Breckles has made clear, whether it's schools or roads, if you want good quality public infrastructure, you've got to invest in it. If you want more money for public investment, then you'll have to vote to elect Labour members of Parliament. It's interesting, Tories, they love a good motion on the state of roads. My theory is it's because it's the one bit of the public sector they can't manage to buy their way out of, so it really peeves them. But on the motion itself, I think if there's one thing that unites people in local politics, it is a hatred of potholes. They're a nuisance for motorists, cyclists, pedestrians and e-scooter users. Basically anyone and everyone. So we're happy to support a motion that wants the council to reassess whether we can do more to remediate them. We've got a good record since we came to office in 2016. There's 60% less potholes now than there were then. But we're happy to look again at ways that that figure can be raised. Importantly, we also need more funding for preventative measures like surface dressing. We're only having to fix potholes because of a lack of government funding for measures like this. If we had the money for surface dressing that prevented the freeze-thaw action, we wouldn't have potholes, and we shouldn't have potholes, any potholes. And for Councillor Eddy, we did replace some of the concrete road in his ward. It cost £10 million. We took it all up and we replaced the sub-base. We know how to do it, but we simply can't afford to do it. There's obviously more work to do, but I have my reservations about whether this can be done without more cash. Members of the Budget Task and Finish group should see if they can find areas they would like to cut to direct more funding towards this. And Tory councillors may want to ask their government for more funding to devolve fiscal powers to councils, which would be much better because there are actually many ways that we could raise funding as local authorities where we're given the powers. We could, for instance, raise PCNs, enforcement, and we discussed this earlier, and bailiffs and the amount of money which we lose. £70 simply isn't enough, but that is set by central government. Could we raise that? No. If we could raise it, we could raise a lot more money, we could improve enforcement, and we could fix our roads. But central government insists on that being set in Westminster, and that is a very, very controlling and centralised system, unparalleled anywhere else in the developed world, I would suggest.
I'm going to ask you to start coming to a closure soon, please.
Okay, very quickly then. So the rental scheme, Councillor Smith is just incorrect on the facts of it. We would only be able to apply it on 5% of our roads. We'd have to have an evidence base to show that those were the most congested roads.
Don, can you wind up now, please?
Yes, and then the money would have to go into a rentals board with the utilities. So, and we would have to pay some of it because unfortunately we do have to do roads.
Excellent.
As well.
Thank you
very much. Thank you.
Okay. I now like to call on Councillor Andrew Varney to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat group. Thank you.
Thank you, my Deputy Lord Mayor. I want to start by reiterating the comments of Councillor Breckles. I also thought it very brave of the Bristol Conservatives to bring a motion on our crumbling infrastructure just days after hundreds of schools constructed using concrete with the consistency of an Aero chocolate bar were forced to shut. Despite years of warnings, the government refused to fully finance their repair, and now we are where we are. However, I don't want to play the party political blame game, and unfortunately, decade after decade after decade, we have consistently failed to invest properly in our infrastructure, from roads to rail, from schools to hospitals, from the national grid to our sewerage systems, all are suffering from years of underinvestment. Now, this motion focuses on one area of our crumbling infrastructure, our highways, and we can all agree that substantial repairs are needed. And there's a lot in the motion that we can support. Extra funding for potholes is to be welcomed, although more is clearly needed. Just last month, a 10-year-old boy came off his bike after hitting a pothole near a busy junction in my ward. He was quite badly injured and needed stitches to his face, and I shudder to think what could have happened if another vehicle had been passing at the same time. Luckily, it hasn't put him off cycling, and he's now back in the saddle. We also support the speedier reinstatement of road markings following surface redressing. In Brisbane West, we were lucky enough to have one road resurfaced this year in late spring, but several months later, residents are still waiting to have the markings put back. However, in fairness to the highways team, they do need a certain period of dry weather to get this work done, something that has been in short supply this year. We also support looking again at a lane rental scheme. Notwithstanding its limitations, such a scheme may incentivise the speedier execution of some roadworks, and that can only be a good thing. It is a pity that the original motion failed to mention pavements and cycle lanes, both of which are an integral part of the highway. If we are to encourage more people to choose sustainable journeys, we need to ensure that these are also kept in good condition. All too often they are seen as a poor relation and don't get the care and attention they deserve. So we are pleased to see attention drawn to them in the amended motion. Bristol Liberal Democrats will be supporting the amended motion as it strengthens the original by including the lobbying of central government for more funding and by including references to the maintenance of pavements and bike lanes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're back to Councillor Hopkins to speak again on this.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Couple of things. I think that there could be better coordination between the departments that have to pay out for compensation, those that are looking at maintenance and things like surface dressing can be a very effective investment in the right place and if done properly, and pothole repairs. Because basically, having spoken to a couple of officers, they said, obviously it costs money to repair every pothole, and if you can prevent a road getting into that state where lots of them appear by surface dressing, that's a good investment. I think that there are some of the minor issues that have come up in the motion. The other day, my ward colleague actually put in a list to the appropriate department of disabled bays that were out of date. These people had actually left the area completely or passed away, and he put in a list of 8. Now, and that was only for part of the ward. Now, if that's happening, and that's in an area where parking space was short, that's a significant problem. We also need to look at the problem is actually going to get worse with potholes, and the reason for that is that we have more people with Chelsea tractors than would be ideal. We have far more delivery wagons taking groceries round, and they wear out the road a lot more than the average car. And believe it or not, research from the University of Leeds has actually pointed out that the electric car, because of the monstrously heavy battery that it has, wears out the road 2.2 times quicker than the conventional equivalent. Now that's something that needs to be borne in mind, because at the moment we have a low percentage of electric cars. In this city that percentage will actually grow, and it'll mean more potholes. So we need to work out how we spend the money effectively and efficiently, and just blaming central government is not the way to do it. I have sympathy with those who say we don't get enough money, but we've got to make certain we're using every option that we've actually got ourselves, and bearing in mind the real factor that's actually going to be happening, and that is increased pressure on our roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Okay. Marvin, do you have a response to the motion? Okay. Councillor Smith, would you like to respond as mover of the motion?
I will briefly. Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Deputy Lord Mayor, apologies. First of all, Councillor Wilcox and the Green Party, I just want to put on record, actually, thanks to, shortly before our friends across the way there swooped in with a slightly more hostile amendment, we had pretty much agreed an altered motion, and a lot of the alterations, or all of the alterations that you proposed, were helpful and improved and strengthened our original motion, and that included mention of pavements and cycling that you referred to, Andrew, and I'm very grateful to you for that. Don, your faith is touching, it really is. That somehow if Labour were to come to government, they suddenly start showering local authorities in cash. It was your Shadow Chancellor and our very own Shadow Chief Secretary, your MP and mine, who were out in the media this weekend talking about Labour's unbreakable fiscal rules. So maybe go and ask them where all the extra money is, but I fear you might be disappointed. You talked about 60% fewer potholes on the road now than there were 10 years ago. I have a sneaking suspicion that those numbers are coming out of Fix My Street. If it tells you the potholes are being fixed on, don't believe it. And finally, on lane rental. I don't know where the figure comes from, but it may be true as far as I know that it could only apply to 5% of roads. But if that speeds up interminable roadworks on the 5% of our busiest roads, I'll take that. I'm quite happy with that. And as for where the money goes, as I said, this isn't an issue about raising money. Lane rental isn't there to raise revenue. It's there to essentially give utilities a bit of a kick up the behind and get them to get work done quicker than they currently do. Finally, Gary, you talked about coordination between departments. That actually, leaving aside all the additional guff that's gone in here, that's at the crux of what we're talking about. How often have we tried to explain to residents that what they see as blindingly obvious can't be done because that's a different team and that's a different budget and they haven't spoken to each other? That's what we're trying to fix here. So, notwithstanding all the additional guff, we will be supporting the amended motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, so now we move to the vote. Again, this is an e-vote. Please make sure you're in your right seats. So we are voting on the motion as amended, and the vote will be open now for 15 seconds. You can vote now, please. Okay, so the vote is in, and it is 56 for and 0 against. Oh. And 0 absences. Well done. Okay, so that's the golden motion, done and dusted, and we don't need to ask for any extra time because we are within our time. So we're moving straight on to the silver motion, which is Save Our Ticket Offices. The motion will be shown on the screen in the room during the proposing speech. This motion has been altered, which means that all groups have agreed to it being changed from its original wording. The altered motion was published today as a supplement to the agenda. So now I would like to ask Councillor Tim Rippington of the group to move the motion. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Last week, I had to catch a train from Bradford-on-Avon to Bristol at about 9 in the morning. I arrived at the small station 10 minutes early before the train was due to depart and was witness to what I can only describe as chaotic scenes. There is a ticket office at Bradford-on-Avon, but they were turning people away if they wanted to buy tickets and directing them to use the one machine located at the platform entrance. At the front of the queue was a couple in their 70s who were trying to work the machine. I'm afraid it was quite painful to watch. The lady in front of me was concerned that she would miss her train and her hospital appointment. I informed her that she could get on the train and buy a ticket there, but she was reticent to do so. A lot of older people have strong moral values and don't like to stray outside the boundaries of what they know to be the correct way of doing things. And signs saying, "Do not board the train without a ticket," have been on railway stations their whole lives. This is just one small aspect of why we need to keep our ticket offices. This station's website describes how to get help for disabled people. It says, meeting point, ticket office, when station is staffed. When station is unstaffed, please make your way onto the platform and make yourself known to the onboard team, which, if your train is on platform 1, involves either crossing the footbridge or making your way back out of the station, over the road bridge and down another residential back street to locate the step-free access. The ticket office is already only part-time. The message is clear. If you're going to be disabled, please do so only in the mornings and not at all on Sundays. Over 1,000 ticket offices in the UK are due to close. Temple Meads will be among them. A huge bustling station with millions of visitors every year. Rail operators say 99% of tickets brought to ticket offices could be bought online. They forgot to add, if you are tech savvy, have internet access, understand which type of ticket suits you best, and don't want to ask for advice. They say only 12% of tickets are bought at ticket offices. In 2021, 380 million train journeys were made. There's some maths to be done there, but I make that roughly 46 million tickets that people still buy at the ticket office every year. Closing ticket offices is just another step in the degradation of our railways under privatisation. Loss of standby drivers means more cancellations. No buffet cars and shorter trains means much less comfort on long journeys. The RMT and other unions have been opposing the removal of guards from trains for several years now on safety grounds. And if there are no ticket offices and no guards on the trains, where are you getting your ticket? Closing ticket offices is a terrible idea, and Bristol City Council has the opportunity now to send a message that we don't support it. Please support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. Right, I'd like to now move to Councillor Philippa Hume to second the motion.
Thank you, my Deputy Lord Mayor. In February, I went with my 85-year-old mum and dad to my uncle's funeral. We decided to travel by train to minimise carbon emissions on our journey to Hereford. At Bristol Parkway, used by many North Bristol residents, I went to buy tickets. In the ticket office, a lovely member of staff told me that all trains northwards and westwards were heavily delayed and likely to be cancelled. When I told him they were going to a funeral, he told me to get in the car and drive. Without that advice, which a ticket machine could not have provided, my dad would have missed his brother's funeral. That caring attitude is typical of the knowledgeable staff at our local ticket offices. The patient staff give people who are new to rail travel the confidence to travel by train. They provide a vital service to the digitally excluded. Ticket office staff can sell discounted tickets to wheelchair users, which, according to Disability Rights UK, are not available to buy at ticket vending machines. As Disability Rights says, if the plans go ahead, there will be a massive reduction in confidence in the whole railway system, and thousands of disabled people will be discouraged from travelling on the railways at all. Let's not forget neurodiverse people too. In one article, a person with autism pointed out that he wants to know exactly where to find a member of staff. He doesn't want to be wandering all over the station to find someone in uniform and have to attract the attention. And quite frankly, when I've got my luggage, nor do I. Mick Lynch of the RMT Union has pointed out that even the consultation on the Tories' terrible proposal was not available in accessible formats. Obviously, those completing a survey on an app can also buy train tickets on an app. Speaking of Mick Lynch, all of us in the Labour Party are proud to stand with the unions against the inevitable job cuts that closing ticket offices would bring. Here in Bristol, this Labour-led council has worked with WECA to bring important improvements to the rail network in Bristol, with the opening of Portway Station. I was proud to stand alongside Cabinet members Councillor Don Alexander and Kai Dudd at the opening. Construction of Ashley Down Station has started, which will be useful for residents in my ward, amongst others. We are now pushing hard to get WECA to improve access at Lawrence Hill, Parsons Street, Bedminster and Stapleton Road stations. We hope to get unanimous support for this motion. We've accepted changes from other party groups and, of course, are very happy to credit the many excellent, tireless local railways campaigners in Bristol for their efforts. I would just like to reiterate that ticket office staff play a vital role in supporting rail users. They deserve to keep their jobs. Without staff ticket officers, the digitally excluded will be forced off the railways. Many will resort to cars, leading to greater pollution, and others will be stuck at home. Please support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Right now, it's time to hear from speakers on the motion, and the first speaker I'd like to call is Carla Denyer to speak on behalf of the Green Group.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Firstly, thank you to Labour for accepting the Green Party's alterations on this motion. Our alteration makes sure that we include the rail unions in conversations between the Council and Great Western Railway to discuss future plans for ticket offices and staffing. That's really important since it's the unions who've been leading the campaign against ticket office closures. If we want more people to use public transport, and we do, to tackle climate change, air pollution and traffic congestion, to name but three, then we need to make it convenient, reliable, affordable and accessible to all. Having a human presence at the ticket office is especially important for disabled and elderly passengers, as we've just heard, but it's valuable for all of us. I used the ticket office recently when my first train was delayed, causing me to miss my connection, and I needed to really quickly find out which alternative trains my limited ticket was valid on. A more complicated question than it needed to be, because it involved multiple private train companies to complete my journey. The fact that our trains are operated by different privatised companies makes ticketing overly complicated, which makes ticket offices all the more important. And in our current cost of living crisis, they are invaluable in helping people find the cheapest possible ticket available to get from A to B. Now, this problem is all part of the government's lack of investment in public transport, to the detriment of all of us. If the government wants to save money on the subsidies it pays to supplement the profits of the private rail companies, it should do what the Green Party has long proposed and return these franchises to public hands when they expire, so that money is spent on improving trains and ticket offices, not to go into the pockets of remote shareholders. Public transport should be run for people, not profit. Thank you. Now, I just want to reflect for a moment on the bigger picture. Both the motions brought tonight ultimately relate to the impact of government austerity on cash-strapped services, and both Labour and Tories are supporting both motions. And yet both parties are still committed to the totally discredited austerity economics. And nationally, neither party will commit to actually properly funding councils and public services with the money that they need to rebuild after a decade of decline, or to raise money for public spending through making taxes fairer so that the super rich and companies pay their fair share. We are a very wealthy country in the UK, but that wealth is unequally distributed. Now, it's true that I do say that a barrier is political will. That's because there is enough money to go around in our economy if we make the right political choices. So, it's great that the whole room agrees that ticket offices should be saved. But at the risk of pointing out the obvious, if we want decent public services in this country, we have to invest in them. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Now I'd like to call on Councillor Mark Weston to speak on behalf of the Conservative Group.
Thank you very much, Deputy Lord Mayor. I think there are a few things wrong with the motion, and then I'll come to the substantive. First things first, I don't like a little of the language. I realise there's splitting a difference on this, but I actually got an awful lot of verbal abuse yesterday evening directed at my house. So it's had me pondering how we all talk about things. When we use the term condemn, I condemn Vladimir Putin. I disagree on policy, but it feeds into a rhetoric of hatred that spoils, I think, political discord. That's possibly me in my hypersensitive mood, as it is right now. I also had a slight, I'm aware, thank you, Don. I also have a slight unsettling feeling with the original wording, because it very much felt like Labour bragging and trying to take credit for an awful lot of work that's gone on cross-party over decades. The altered wording is a lot better, and I applaud that. The one thing I do want to say is, it talks about lack of staff in the station. Now, as far as I'm aware, and I take everything with a slight pinch of salt, I wasn't born yesterday, pinch of salt, the idea isn't to cut staff, and I say that with that pinch of salt, but rather to get them out on the platforms. However, that does raise the issue that how would you know where that staff member is? Possibly they should find a desk to put them behind. And when they're at that desk, they could find some tasks for them to do. Maybe sell a ticket or two, provide advice. But actually, I don't actually hold the same argument when we talk about staff cuts. I don't believe that that is the driver on this. Having said that, I think the driver for it is misguided. 88% of tickets are bought online. And I think that percentage will increase ever more as the population becomes even more tech savvy, as technology advances, ease of use increases. So I can see a point in the future where logic, probably, and that steady increase, erodes the argument for ticket offices down the line. But it certainly isn't here today. There are people that rely on those ticket offices to access a service and to move around. And so I think trying to close them now is too soon, with too little notice and too poor a level of consultation. I don't think there's enough people out there that actually know this is happening and could have a profound impact on their way of life and how they work. So today, although not fully satisfied with the wording, we will be supporting this. We think this is a mistake, and we will happily lobby, along with colleagues here, to try and reverse this. It is wrong. I would just say, if I can, to Councillor Wilcox, if we're doing a scrutiny day, we talk about growth and regen, we're bringing in railway companies, bringing in unions, rail user groups, I think, should be invited as well. I think the person that's actually going to be the one that suffers the poor service or benefits of an improved service should be part of a conversation as we work out this. I don't think that needed an amendment, so I just flag it to you now. But we'll be supporting the altered motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so now I'd like to move to Councillor Tim Kent to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll try to be brief, being aware of the time this evening. So we support the motion and oppose the proposal to close ticket offices at railway stations. We believe that these closures would have real negative consequences, some of which we've already heard tonight. So we've already heard they have a disproportional impact upon disabled people, older people, and those who have not got good internet access. And I think that's a very important point within our society. We're creating a divided society where maybe 10 to 20% of people are being cut out. It makes stations less safe. Ticket offices are actually points of security for passengers and the stations themselves. And I think we need to think about that as we try to grow the amount of rail passengers. It reduces customer satisfaction. People aren't just going there to buy tickets, they're going there for information as well. And I think that is an important point. I think actually a very good point made by a Conservative colleague there, that ticket offices are where people go to get information, and perhaps while they're there, they'll go and get a ticket. So we support the calls by many groups that these proposals be abandoned. During a time when we are looking to increase rail travel and shift people away from the car and onto sustainable transport, we want them to have, we want them to make sure that's a good experience. Ticket offices could be crucial to that. So we oppose the proposal to remove ticket offices and actually hope that the rail companies will have a rethink on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Okay, now I'd like to move to Gary Hopkins again to speak from the Noel Community Party.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. The point made earlier on about how complicated the system is at the moment, with a myriad of different fares and companies. That's why the ticket offices are so vital, and because not everybody is comfortable doing everything online. I'll keep it brief. I can't believe that this proposal was brought forward. I mean, you know, sometimes governments or organisations bring forward ideas and you think, I disagree with that, but you understand why they've done it. But this is so staggeringly stupid and inept that you think, how the heck did they even contemplate doing it? So I'm sure we'll all be voting together on the same side, and I hope that sends a message. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So, Councillor Rippington, would you like to respond now to the full debate?
Thank you. I will be brief. I do take a lot of the points. I think a lot of good points have been made. Mark, I think even some of the things you said I agree with very rarely. But on the term condemn, to be honest, after 13 years of your government, I've got fed up with talking in, you know, pleasant language. So we really do condemn this proposal. But no, other than that, I'm happy to move to a vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so we move to the vote. And once again, this is an e-vote. You're in your proper seats. You're voting on the motion, and the vote will be open in 15 seconds, and the voting is open now. Thank you. Okay, so the results are in, and it's 55 for, nobody abstained, and nobody voted against. So the motion is carried unanimously. Okay, so thank you all. Thank you to all councillors and all others, the majority of the others attending today's meeting. The next meeting of the full council will be held on Tuesday, the 31st of October 2023. I wish you all a good evening and a safe journey home. Thank you.